Hey gang, it's JC, and this is the Daily Dose for Tuesday, June 28th, 2011, a combined venture with Mind Active in beautiful downtown Redwood. Some great television archives, top of the page, eye candy along the bottom, and over in the corner is our rock and roll poll question. Yesterday, would you rather be buried up to your neck in sand, have your head shaved, and then painted like a soccer ball, or have your eyelids stretched out, then punched with a paper punch? Overwhelmingly, 80% would like you want to be buried in sand with your head shaved and painted like a soccer ball. That was a good question for a Monday. Today's rock and roll poll question, a little more on the serious side, actually. You got this woman who's like 86 years old who is protesting and causing a big stink in U City. You know, they're supposed to have this dedication of the Chuck Berry statue in the U City Loop tomorrow, and this woman's jumping all over the place causing troubles. And again, Chuck, not perfect in terms of his behavior over the years, but you know, the stuff that he was in the most trouble for was almost 50 years ago. And you know, the truth of the matter, as I told you yesterday here, is that you'd have to take every statue down, every sort of testimonial ever been given to somebody, every Hollywood Walk of Fame, Grauman's Chinese Theater, books, tributes, whatever. Johnny Cash would have to go. These people all did stuff, you know, unless you're like Wayne Newton or something. But I don't know. It's just so. Here's today's rock and roll poll question: should Chuck Berry get his statue and his ceremony in the U City Loop tomorrow without protests and objections? Yes or no? Please answer right there. We'll give you the results tomorrow here on the Daily Dose. Well, we laughed every time Charlie Sheen talked about the fact that he's got some new mysterious show, and he was very cryptic about what the details were. Well, it looks like the whole thing is going to happen. As a matter of fact, the outfit that is responsible for Mad Men and Weeds and Nurse Jackie and Tyler Perry's House of Pain apparently working with Charlie Sheen for a new show, and it looks like TBS might be the destination. We thought it was Fox, but the front runner seems to be TBS. You have a little more latitude on cable also. And the people basically putting this thing together say, look, Charlie Sheen's got this incredibly wacky life and people are bound to watch the show. And TMZ is reporting that Chuck Lorre, the guy who Charlie had the big stink with, who was the producer of the show, is going to kill Charlie off on Two and a Half Men. They're going to have him drive his car off a cliff, which is sort of apropos because Charlie had two cars, very expensive cars, that were driven off cliffs. And this, by the way, would prevent Charlie, obviously, from ever returning to the show. And Chuck Lorre might be... I'm not sure that's a good idea, you know, because things change in Hollywood, and why would you do that? You'd have to bring him back in a dream sequence, or as an angel or a devil or something like that. But that's what we're hearing, and this whole thing could come down as early as January, by the way. Charlie Sheen, by the way, left with no goddesses, officially. The last one, Natalie Kenley, left the building. Charlie wants his Mercedes back. She took off with it, by the way. And the night she left, one of the triggering aspects of that whole relationship ending was that Charlie had sex with 3 different women that night. One from Mexico, one from Australia, and one from Colombia. It's just you can't write stuff like this. All right, if you think Jim Carrey can have any woman he wants, think again. Apparently, when he hosted Saturday Night Live a few months back, he fell in love with Kristen Wiig and just like went nuts for her, was asking her out all the time, was showing up with flowers and candy, hanging out backstage at Saturday Night Live, and finally, she had to tell him, look, I'm spoken for, I'm in a long-term relationship, beat it. So the answer was no, Jim Carrey got shut down. It is official. For the first time since 1978, when it last ruled on broadcast indecency, the FCC has petitioned the Supreme Court to hear a case on what they call fleeting expletives. Bono was involved in one of these things on an awards show, and the F word blurted out, and they weren't able to clip it. And it goes back to NYPD Blue, which, I mean, what year was that? How many years ago was that? 10 years ago? And protest groups and people who, you know, belong to Christian organizations and people who are just jumping down and seem to be obsessed with the idea of letter writing and making our country pure as the driven snow, are jumping up and down. And so it's going to go to the Supreme Court right now. But even one of the most conservative judges on the Supreme Court, Clarence, that nasty boy Thomas, has basically said, I don't know. The media landscape is changing, and I'm not sure that these indecency rules and regulations that the FCC has been, trying to enforce since its inception are any good anymore. And ultimately, it's not. Some people are saying, well, the entire broadcast airwaves, TV and radio, will just turn into a cesspool. But that doesn't make any sense, because it isn't the FCC that keeps people from just going on the air and becoming potty mouths. It's the advertiser support, because the advertisers know that if you do something that's consistently over the line, your Schnookses and your Sears and places like that aren't going to advertise with you. So the whole thing is it's 2011, and sometimes it just doesn't seem that way, does it? All right, we were told when they made Toy Story 3, I always do that, when they were doing Toy Story 3, that this was going to be the last one. That's it for the Toy Story franchise. Well, it turns out Tom Hanks was interviewed on British TV, and he said, no, this is going to be a fourth movie. They're working on it right now. So, gotcha. Curveball, got him looking. Jeff Probst, the host of Survivor, is getting his own daytime talk show. He's going to continue to do Survivor. They think they might have this thing on by the fall of 2012. Guess what? NBC's The Voice is getting a live tour. Yeah, so it's not anything like American Idol, which is what they told us right from the beginning. All right, bad news. Your car is sexist. According to a study, the majority of voice command and navigational systems have more trouble understanding a woman's voice than a man's. And it's causing women to punch out their GPS systems and stuff like that. All right, in a new list by Men's Health, Lexington, Kentucky has been named the laziest city in the United States. Whenever these surveys come out, I right away I go to the whole list and I'm like, all right, where did St. Louis come in? Well, good news, we're ranked number 63. The ranks are based on exercise rates, TV and video game habits, sitting-related diseases. Lexington finished just below Indianapolis and Jackson, Mississippi. Yesterday, everybody was outraged about that 95-year-old woman who was flying from Destin, Florida to Michigan, and she had, she was in a wheelchair, and she had multiple sclerosis or something like that. And these TSA people said, you got to take off your diaper, your adult diaper, and we're going to pat you down and all that. And people just went berserk. Well, guess what? Even this woman's daughter says not exactly what happened. The story may have been inflated a little bit. They did make it clear, however, that the mother could not board the plane until they inspected the diaper. They made her go into a restroom at the insistence of the daughter, who's now sort of telling her side of the story. And by the way, just last month, customs agents at JFK Airport in New York found a woman smuggling heroin in an adult diaper. So now people are going, well, maybe it's justified after all. But as we said yesterday on the air, you go overseas and they don't do pat downs and stuff like that. It's all about the psychological observation. They have people trained to look at people and determine whether or not they're a risk. And they seem to be very successful with it. We're going with the analog way here in this country. We're just starting grabbing people's junk and feeling around in 5-year-olds. In Ohio, a woman got into a drunken argument with her husband, locked herself in her car. When the cops tried to get her out, she fought them off by pulling out her right breast and spraying them with breast milk. Once the scream stopped, they arrested her for several charges, including a very creative and oddly sexy method of resisting arrest. The first zero packaging grocery store is going to open up in Austin, Texas. Basically, they're going to give you cleaning products, produce, spices, dairy, wine, everything, but you have to bring your own containers. And you'll just buy wine by showing up with an empty jug, and you'll hook it up to a spigot, and then you'll be charged, apparently, bargain basement prices, because they're not going to pay for any of the packaging. They're telling people that this is all about recycling and stuff like that, so we'll see. What is killing the environment right now? It is your cable box and your DVR. The average high-definition cable box uses 10% more energy than an energy-efficient refrigerator. And they run all the time. Even when they're off, they still run because their hard drives have to be lit up. All right, I almost missed this morning, but Alice Cooper is putting out a box set of 4 CDs covering the 10 years, 1964 to 1974. There's a 64-page booklet to it, a DVD, and a vinyl album. And all of this, believe it or not, is from Alice Cooper's 1971 Killer Tour in St. Louis. And that's out in record stores and online and stuff like that today. Listen to me, record stores. Roger Daltrey, 67 years old, and he says, yeah, we're probably on the home stretch as far as singing and stuff like that. He had a real scare with his voice a couple of years ago, but now he's doing well. And again, a St. Louis reference. Roger said he's inspired by old school musicians like Chuck Berry. Saturday Night Live, clown ass and horrible bosses star Jason Sudeikis, who's from Overland Park, Kansas, by the way, has been on 2 dates with Eva Mendes. This guy gets around. It was January Jones and now Eva Mendes. How about that? And Daryl Hammond had to cancel a live performance in New York on Saturday. He was in a car crash. He's all right, sort of banged up. He's got bruises and stuff like that, but he's going to be okay. And Clint Eastwood reportedly wants Leonardo DiCaprio and Beyonce as the leads for his remake of A Star is Born. And Michelle Bachmann yesterday announced her candidacy for the presidency of the United States. And she did it in her hometown of Waterloo, Iowa, and said, you know, I sort of embody the spirit of John Wayne, who is from Waterloo, Iowa. And it wasn't John Wayne, it was from Waterloo. It was John Wayne Gacy, the convicted serial murderer who spent a good chunk of his life there. Oh, this is going to be fun. All right, JC's Eye Candy today. This is sort of fascinating because in the 1970s, in that pre-internet era, you know, if you were working in Flint, Michigan, for example, as I was, and you wanted to move somewhere for another job, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, geez, you know, I don't know, what's Lansing, Michigan like? What is Omaha, Nebraska like? What is St. Louis like? We had a book, and it was about the size of a paperback thesaurus. By the way, what's another word for thesaurus? Anyhow, this thing was called the Radio Quarterly Report, and it was basically pages and pages of snapshots of American cities, bits and pieces about that city, so you could sort of think to yourself, well, is this a place I want to move to? This is sort of all we had. And I found page 397 from 1976 and the snapshot page of St. Louis, and a couple of things will jump off the page at you, like the size of the market, the cost of gas, and what was the other one too? And and how much you could make as a radio personality here in St. Louis. It's hilarious, and it's right below what you're looking at right now on JC's Eye Candy. All right, don't forget now our rock and roll poll question today: should Chuck Berry get his statue and ceremony in the U City Loop tomorrow without protests and objections because of his past transgressions? Please answer right there, and we will give you the results tomorrow here on the Daily Dose. And of course, we're on the air every day from noon until 3 on the Big 550 KTRS. And we hope that you can join us. That's it, JC's Daily Dose for Tuesday, June 28th, 2011, a combined venture with Mind Active in beautiful downtown Brentwood. In the meantime, we've beaten this one to death. Have a good one. See you later. Bye.